Okay, so this is going to be a recap from session 16 since the recording didn't work. Well, the recording worked, just I forgot to turn the audio recording on, so stupid DM. Anyway, so this is a recap of session 16 of Into the Abyss, Underspire, Labyrinth. In this session, the party had just finished wrapping up a fight in the Hall of the Howling Pillars. And in that room, they were fighting a Balgura, his minions, and these howling pillars that were kind of teleporting them around the room. But they had just finished defeating all of them, basically. Splug managed to extract 3 vials of demon blood from the dead Balgura, gave them to Bryn. She would need them potentially later for the ingredients to a ritual she'd do once they found the right room. They all felt inspired after this, as if inspired by a magical hand that was dealt to them, i.e., the inspiration cards, and they all rejuvenated as if they took a long rest. After that, they all decided to head north into the center of the Well of Demons again. The one area they didn't make it into yet was this little room right here on the right, so that's where they head into next. Inside that room, they came across a room of old skeletons. They've been shackled to the walls, along with hundreds, if not thousands, of scattered bones of various creatures all over the floor. They also found another magic circle of runes amongst the room of bones. And this room also contained what they eventually learned to be the entrance to the inner sanctum, a set of double doors up here as well. They decided to go through this pile of bones and remove all the heads and cut off all the pelvic bones, so they couldn't come back alive to attack them. And they piled them up all into these 2 old rusted cells here on the south side of the wall. So I guess they're basically declaring that no undead skeleton will be attacking them this evening. From there, let's see, they headed north, looking for the 4th magic circle, because at this point they had only found 3 of them. So to the north, they did discover the 4th magic circle of runes in a room with an altar. There's also many minotaur statues and a trail of blood leading up to this altar. The walls of this room had many carvings depicting Baphomet and his followers in various scenes of battle and torture. However, the altar was covered with signs of another deity, to which they would later discover would be the deity of Yanagu, if I'm saying it right, the demonic demon lord of the Knolls. Okay, from here, they felt satisfied that they now knew the location of each of the magic circles. So they divided up the 4 pieces. The knife and hilt is 1 piece. The book, the mask, and the bell. Splug went into the room with the different pools of liquid. Gralnar went into the room with the Minotaur statues, not the altar room that they just came from. Helmet stayed in the altar room with the blood trails. Bryn went down to the corridor with the various skeleton remains, and Varda stood by the doorway that led to the inner sanctum, also in the room with the skeleton remains. Danny waited in a spot near the top of the inner circle that had the track marks on the walls, floors, and ceilings. As they simultaneously placed their items within the magic circles, lights flickered from the magic circles as each of the items glowed with a bright intensity before they disappeared. A thunderous growl and then a roar was heard from somewhere near the center of the proving grounds. Splug attempted to Splug attempted to sprint out of the room of that liquid of pools, but before he could escape, a whirlwind of water erupted from the calm blue pool and grabbed him. The scattered bones began to shuffle and move within the corridor of bones where Bryn and Varda were, and a horrendous wailing sound erupted from the statues in the altar room where Helmet was. Helmet temporarily lost composure and ran out of the altar room and into the inner circle hallway. Gralnar darted out of his room just as a few more animated turrets dropped from out of the ceiling. Dandy caught sight out of the corner of his eye a large black cloud that crackled electricity from within the inner circle just before moving away from him in a counterclockwise direction. The green dragon raised his head from the pit in the center of the proving grounds and looked towards Danny. Chaos ensued. The black cloud of electrical energy, henceforth called the Doomsphere, raced around the inner circle at an astonishing speed as it wreaked havoc on anyone in its path. The first one happened to hit in its path was Splug, who took quite a good blow from it. The dragon flew out from the pit and sprayed its poison breath toward the north upon its first few foes it ran across. The dragon then took flight and kept pace with the Doomsphere as it raked its claws and maw over any heroes within its path. Varda, once they cornered it into the center of the room, made a truly inspired attempt to halt the dragon's barrage and compel it to a duel, but alas, luck was a bitch this night. And when I say luck was a bitch, I think the guys used like 5 or 6, hell, maybe even 10 inspiration cards trying to get this compelled duel spell to work. But every single time, the dragon was victorious as it kind of rolled miraculously every single time at disadvantage to succeed. So the party did eventually manage to surround it within an inner circle and started to severely wound it. Bryn called forth her dark magic to animate 2 deadly barrages of skeleton bones and readied them to strike whenever the dragon made its presence known to them. Desperate for relief from the barrage of blows and arrows, the green dragon rushed past 2 foes, ripping and biting as it went, and unbeknownst to the rest of the party, it was heading straight for the inner sanctum door. Bon Jovi managed a bow and arrow strike, as the dragon came barreling towards him. He was living on a prayer, and there's another one of those Bon Jovi references that you love to hate. As the party chased down the dragon, Bryn's animated bones ripped through the green dragon's face as it roared its last breath. The Doomsphere evaporated and disappeared. The scattered bones along the floor stopped moving. The wiggling stopped, and they assumed the other hazards also stopped functioning. And it appears they had succeeded at proving themselves in Baphomet's proving grounds. The door to the inner sanctum slowly started to open as the stone doors scraped the pavement. About 20 feet behind the now open doors, all I could see was gray mist or fog. Splug's sword told him not to lose faith, and that Baphomet would reward them. They decided not to pass up the opportunity to harvest something valuable from the green dragon. So somebody had heard the dragon's Draconis Fundamentum could catch a fine price on the open market. Therefore, Splug broke out the harvesting tools and carefully extracted the large poison sac with much success. For safekeeping, they decided to keep it in Nipto's backpack of holding. Bryn took advantage of this break in the fighting to cast Animate Dead one more time upon a pile of bones. Bryn declared, "I shall call him Bone Dog." Splug, bolstered by the sword's words, boldly walked into the mist with the sword pointed out in front of him. And from this point forward was pretty much steer of the mind as we went through Splug navigating this area of blindness and deafness within his hallway. So I'll move this back to the beginning for theory of the mind. So after about 30 feet, Splug felt, but did not hear, his sword hit something. He felt around for a door handle, and when he found it, he also felt 2 needle pricks inject into his wrist. He shouted back to the others, but Splug had no idea that nobody could hear him at this point. Splug tried to handle him again, but this time he pulled his hand back before anything pricked him. And after several more shouts back to his friends, he reluctantly returned back to see them face to face. Deciding that there was some kind of a poison or a needle trap in there, Bryn sent in Bone Dog since he was immune to poison. Bone Dog returned a minute later, and just as the door was open, Splug entered a second time, and he found a second door beyond the first one with a similar handle on it. Not want to take any chances, Splug circled back to the group, and again Bone Dog was sent in to open the second door. After about 5 minutes, Bryn started to assume the worst. Maybe Bone Dog went down in a blaze of glory. Yeah, there's another ruthless Bon Jovi reference. Splug went in again, but this time they formed a human chain with each party trailing behind the other, with one hand firmly gripped on the person in front of them. Splug found the first door opening and stepped through, and just about tumbled if it were not for a tight grip on his ear from Grolnar. The floor was gone. Thinking quickly, Splug grabbed a rope and motioned in the dark by touchy-feely techniques with Grolnar, Helen Keller method, that he should hold the rope. Splug descended down to the pit, but as he reached about 30 feet down, he felt a bony hand on his leg. Not sure if this was friend or foe. Splug reluctantly kept going, and they eventually found out it was actually Bone Dog. He was alive. Or at least he assumed it was Bone Dog at that point. Again, he still couldn't see or hear. Bone Dog led Splug to the other end of the pit, placed his hand upon a foothold. Splug felt around and discovered that a makeshift ladder had been carved into the wall. He found the second door at the top of this makeshift ladder, but it was also closed. He reached up, pulled the door handle with no regard for a trap or anything, and was relieved to feel the floor of the hallway swing back into place. With the floor back in place, Splug tried to open the door again, and again the floors fell away. But this time Splug held onto the lever, and Bulldog held on to Splug. Splug pulled the lever again to raise the floors once again. Once upright, he eventually discovered an alternate mechanism to open the second door without triggering the pit trap. He then tugged on the rope, and the rest of the party made their way blindly towards Splug. Again, couldn't see or hear within this mist or fog. Splug gingerly stepped forward into the mist and was relieved that the floor was solid. About 10 feet in, Splug exited the mist into a large split-level room where he could now see and hear. About 50 feet in front of him, he could see a raised section of the room about 10 feet higher than where he was currently standing. And upon the raised platform, he could see a large skeletal minotaur standing next to a large cauldron of roiling liquid with a green mist pouring out over the rim. Flanking the skeletal minotaur were two of the same kind of red demons they had fought in the Hall of Howling Pillars. Beyond these minions were two humanoids standing in an illuminated magic circle. The two humanoids looked to be dazed or in some kind of a trance. Splug could hear, and he heard, a chanting somewhere to his northeast. He also noticed stairs about 20 feet in front of him that led upwards to the north. At the top of the stairs was a familiar sight, another Balgura. To the south of the room was another cauldron of the same green liquid. Beyond the second cauldron, against the southern wall, was a large statue of a minotaur-looking creature, later discovered to be that of Baphomet. All of the creatures in the room turned their heads towards Splug. The Balgura roared. The skeletal minion pointed at Splug with his great axe, and the demons hissed and crouched as if ready to pounce. And Splug's short sword spoke to him. "This is our moment! Kill them all and fulfill the revenge oath to our Lord Baphomet." And that is where we ended that session. So I hope you enjoyed that audio, video recap, whatever. If not, I'm sorry. I suck as a DM.